Storytelling Ron. Hi. Hey, I'm going to talk about Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. And you know me, I tend to be more critical of things. So there's a lot of great guys out there on YouTube and gals talking about Tasha's Cauldron of Everything and what they like about it and stuff. And obviously I buy D&D stuff, right? You can see right there. I buy D&D stuff. So it's, so D&D is like my thing. I mean, I could use any role playing system really, but I'm enjoying D&D. I think what they're doing is fine, tops. And so I want to talk, and I have some other books here, but I want to talk about this. And first off, do you need it? You don't need it. You don't need to buy it. And so it's just extra fun stuff, right? So if you're a new DM, and you're like, what do I need? Really, you only need the Monsters Manual and the Player's Handbook. That's really all you need to play this game. And there's the Dungeon Master's Guide, obviously, but that has so much extra stuff that you don't need. And of course, it has the magic items, which I really don't even use. I use my own kind of low magic item stuff. And these are the two main ones. And this one here, the most important thing too is like the combat rules, the action skills section, and the conditions. Those things are the things you really need to study in this one the most. And then of course, making a character and all that stuff. But the combat, conditions and skill checks and all that, like you really got to get that down as a DM. And then you should look at my 357 video on just the basic understandings of doing creature stats, like just 357, right? Third level, fifth level, seventh level, kind of, ninth level, 10th, whatever. And then using that sort of basic understanding of how you do creature stats or whatever, anyone really. So this one is kind of in the veins of this, right? They're both adding to the flavor of the player characters, of the players, what options they have, things like that. Now there's also, just so you know, these two, which are game books, additional stuff, but these are more like monsters and for DMs. But again, I rarely use these. They're fun to read and check out, and another thing about these three books too, Tasha's, Volo's, and about Xanathar's, which is just more stuff, is that I just love having these though. Is that they're really for people. They're not for beginners, right? And they're not really for people who play like once a week and they don't really see each other except for that once a week. And they're probably new players and a new DM, or maybe experienced DM and new players, or maybe they're all new except for one experienced person. But whatever. I really think you guys should stick to Player's Handbook and Monster Manual, and that's it. I mean, as far as like the options that you choose, and I'll explain it here in a sec. And these other books. With all this crazy extra stuff in it, I really feel, these two especially, that with all the extra feats and all the different character classes and all the different, cool things that you could do, those really should be for DMs and players who hang out a lot. Like literally they have a garage or a place they all come to like every day or every other day, which is a dream, for any D&D player and DM. And everyone just hangs out. Because then you can really delve into all these different character classes and just make crazy stuff and crazy worlds. And I'll get to this as well, but there's a lot of cool things in here for different environments and different epic, so if you just do Player's Handbook, right, with the Monster Manual, you're just going to do, and I really like this, fantasy tropes, just the basic fun stuff, the basic wizard, the basic fighter, the cleric, the rogue, and then you're going to have the dungeon, the castle, like the fun tropes. And I love tropes, and I will always play tropes. The same old, nothing original or different or unique. And I don't want originality in my D&D, to be honest. I want tropes. I just want I want to expect orcs and goblins and fighting and treasure and fun stuff like that. Obviously, when you go to this level, you've got the tropes, and then you lay it with a whole nother layer of craziness, high fantasy, freak out stuff. I like the one in here where the town is run by spiders. There's like, like kind of a crazy environment. And you got to, I don't know, go in and try to, clear out the town. And that could be a year-long campaign right there. And that's kind of neat. So I do like, I get that. That to me though is one of those things where you guys are hanging out week after week. I mean, you have like 2 to 3 sessions a week, 4 to 6 hours, that I can see, and where it becomes really fun to do all these different, unique character classes, like the gnome artificer in here. Well, it may not be a gnome, but generally speaking, it would probably be a gnome artificer, who's the one who makes magic items. That I can see a player who hangs out with the DM, their buddies, crafting that character, every 2-3 days, hanging out. But I feel like if you're a new DM or you DM a group that you only see once a week on that, on that online event, and it's going to be not as good. It's going to be more difficult to do these unique classes. I would stick with the tropes, the fighter, the cleric, because there's so much variety in a cleric, right? Already, you got, just in the player's handbook, you've got 5 or 6 different domains, and same with druids, and then you got all the different spells, and then maybe background stuff, and then maybe you add a couple of feats, and they're all very unique. So a player that only comes once a week and online, or sees you, which is kind of what my groups are. It's just going to be too hard if you start adding in all these different variations and variety. And that's probably why I don't do magic, the Dungeon Master guys, magic items, because they're just adding another layer of uniqueness that is kind of turns your character into a library. And that can get very tiresome. It can really slow the game down, because you want to keep the pace of the storyline. And you want to just have those tropes so that people can remember them and play their character without having to go, oh, okay, what's that magic item do again? Or that, or they have a printout of it and they got to read it again. And okay, it can do this, so I'm going to do that. But then the limits are this and this. There's so many in the magic items, along with feats and everything else. There's so many, like, you can do this, but you're limited to this and this. And the interpretation of those rules can get really wacko. And I really learned this through Warhammer 40k. 10 years ago or so, I played Warhammer 40k quite a bit. And I saw its evolution from, you had an army and you fought, to later on, it started, creating more and more unique heroes. And I saw, especially the younger kids, they would interpret the heroes' different unique abilities overpoweringly, like a vague example. If I, like the kid, their Dark Eldar can do a blast, 20-foot radius, and kill everything. But I'm like, well, that means it'll kill your troops too. And they're like, no, it just says it. I'm only attacking want to kill the enemy. I'm going to kill every of them. No, that blast kills everything. So you got to be careful. You know what I mean? Like, there's so many unique little things that get misinterpreted when you have so many different options. And as a DM, that could be very overwhelming and very frustrating if you only play once a week, with a group, and that's it. Like in mine, a couple will do their homework, but quite a few won't. And I'm fine with that. That's okay that they don't do their homework. Thusly, I like to keep it, the tropes. You be a wizard. You be a cleric. Can I be a eldritch wizard? No, just be a wizard, please. Just, you trust me. There's plenty of variety in doing that, I mean, I literally could play a wizard for the next 10 years just out of the player's handbook, and I would have a different wizard every time, right? Or a player. If you're creative enough, you will have a different wizard every time. If you choose the different domains or whatever they're called, the schools and stuff like that. So again, my suggestion is, if you are, if you guys just see each other once a week during the game session, and that's pretty much it, and stick with the player's handbook. Don't go out of it. It's not necessary. You got plenty of variety there. Every character class has a variety in its subclasses, plus the race, plus the feats, plus the backgrounds. You're gonna have a completely different character. You could play, again, a ranger every campaign, and it can be a different kind of ranger. It could be a warrior ranger, a casting ranger, a healer ranger, blah blah blah. So again, that's what I'm saying. If you're in a group that's hangs out, and that would be the best thing. Obviously, I miss those days. I got a great life as I am now. But in a D&D sense, back in the day when we hung out all the time, we had our garage and we played. Many times we went till sunup. It was awesome. Then you can delve into all those kind of varieties. Like, I don't even like multi-classing. Like, I remember though when I was a kid, we all multi-classed because we hung out every day. So we wanted to create all these different crazy things, and we had plenty of time And we certainly did random adventures all the time too within our adventures because we had 8 hours to play or 12 hours, whenever we played. Okay, so I'm going to go through a bit of this. I like at the beginning it talks about some nice basic rule clarifications, which is cool, which is good. That's always nice to have that. I'll say, so character options, right? It's coming out with some new characters. And the Artificer is really kind of cool. Making magic items, that's kind of neat. But again, I would not do that. I would steer that away from inexperienced players or players you just see once a week. But if there was someone in there that I knew was really, really into it and had these books and really study them, I would let them do that. But if someone that didn't have the books or, I could tell they only come once a week, I would just have them do a cleric, do a fighter, do a barbarian, something basic and just have fun with that. So again, the Artificer is cool. It kind of opens up like the ideas of making magic items and stuff. I want to pass that. We'll just go okay. So it does bring up a couple of like the barbarians and bards and all that where it has, a few clarifications for the player's handbook, a couple of added varieties in there, not necessary, but kind of neat. And it like opens up more spells for the different classes that they can actually do a couple extra spells. So even in your own sense, you could, if a player really wanted a spell that they don't have in their list, and they felt like it's important to them, you could certainly let them have it. There's some, so it kind of goes through all the character classes and gives them little extra things and then extra options. Really builds up on the fighter class too, which I don't know, that's a bit much, but there's so much variety in the player's handbook, and then for this one to have even more, again, gonna get complicated if you only see them once a week. If you guys see each other every few days and you hang out and play whenever and it's a good old time, then Tasha's Cauldron and everything is fine. But if you're just seeing each other once a week, I would not recommend using these things because everyone's going to interpret the rules a little differently, and when there's so much variety, it's going to get out of hand. Do what you want, but you're going to find that happen. At least I find that happening. Okay, I want to move on to. Okay, keep going, wizard. Okay, I'm getting the W's. Feats. Okay, so there's more feats, which is kind of like a magic item or an upgrade. And again, it has a little list of things. I find feats interesting, but you got to keep them manageable when there's so many. And when, if you have 6 players and they all start grabbing feats, it's like, again, people are going to misinterpret those feats. So it's like you got to get on them and read them yourself and make sure you guys all kind of understand them together. That's something you do out of game. So are you hanging out with the players outside of the game session to do that? Or do they spend the time to really learn it and then talk to you, message you, text you, or you guys talk, And that's important. If they're not doing that, then I would not expand out too much with other things. Now, for DMs, here's something that I kind of like, especially for new DMs. This may even be the group patrons thing is really neat. Where, I don't even know why I'm showing it. You guys have the book. The group patrons is kind of neat because it helps you set up especially if you don't know, what do you want to do? What kind of world do you want? I did a video on the basics of what do you want to do? Create creatures, grow them out from there. How are they hiding? What is their motive? If you do giant rats, what do giant rats? So they're going to hide. Well, where do they live amongst humans? Well, in the sewers, and grow out your world like that, which is a fun way of doing it. But another fun way, and I like this, is patrons, is where, you create an academy type. Oh, wizard school. So you have a patron there, a silly wizard, or anyway, so a secret monastery. And, what do they want? What are their motivations? And you can build out from there. Why are they secret? Well, are they oppressed? Are they persecuted? So that's kind of cool. You could the patrons gives you a lot of great foundational ideas for creating your own world, or creating the plot of this region. And especially for new DMs, the patrons part is a nice way of giving you really getting your ideas going as far as how you'd want different kind of societies in there, and what they're all doing. And you could even do like 5 or 6 of these and have them all fighting each other, like in a plot conspiracy thing. So that's I think this is a really neat way of guiding new DMs. And I would look at it too. I don't know if I would use them because I think I'm so cool and know everything. But I really like, oh, this is kind of neat. I would not have you be the patron though, unless again, you guys are those dudes and gals that hang out, 3 to 5 times a week where you can be the patron yourself. I would definitely keep that, for those kind of people. What is the name for those kind of people? Super awesome D&D players. Yeah, that's it. Super awesome Super awesome D&D players. Sad. That's those kind of guys. The sads are the best people to be playing like this whole thing like awesomely. So there's more spells. That's cool. I watched Dungeon Dudes and they did a good explanation on the spells. I like those guys. They how they work off each other and create those great videos explaining everything. Even my daughter watches them a lot. So yeah, the spells are cool. That's fine. There's a few more spells in here. And again, I would, if you're new DM or you got a bunch of new players, I would stick with the player's handbook only, and all this stuff is only again for the sads. Magic items. Got tattoos. Again, I don't really use the magic items that much. I might use 1 or 2 in a campaign from the DM's Guild Dungeon Master's Guide. Same acronyms, huh? DM's abbreviation. I mean, DM's Guild. Dungeon Master's Guide. Anyway, I would. I generally don't use the magic items because it's like a you got to read a little storyline to figure out what it can do, what it's weak, what it's. My magic items are all very simple. They're based on the rules numbers. They're kind of boring, I guess, but I want to focus more on the story and their actions than on them constantly having to, because whenever we cast a spell, even ones we've cast before, we always have to kind of reread the description of what you can and can't do. So it slows the game down. It slows down, when you get into the mechanics of rules. If there's any way I can reduce that, I will. And thusly, I don't use most of these magic items that have very complicated kind of, where you have to read what they do. And remember, they're going to be using this almost every combat, these magic items or whatever they have. So it gets complicated, and so I don't like to use magic items in a sense. I mean, one day I think I might want to but again, it has to be a group of sads, right? What did that stand for again? Super awesome D&D players, yeah. Okay, so I'm going through that. That's a bunch of magic items. They're all kind of got lots of options. Okay, Dungeon Master's Tools. There's another section which I found pretty helpful, especially for new DMs. It talks about session 0 and about preparing the group and creating characters, but also about the whole social issues, about just being nice and figuring out how nice to be and what rating and the game's going to be. And that's kind of a good, I'm sure there's plenty of articles out there and videos about that. But that's kind of good that they put that in here. I think that's very helpful. You want to know your players and what you can and can't do and all that. So, and then what your audience is going to be too, especially on YouTube and videos. Sidekicks. Okay, sidekicks. I like the idea of sidekicks, and I've seen some stuff on DM's Guild, and I even do my own simple version of sidekicks. I don't like this version though. It's very complicated. And you got to remember something too. Maybe they try to simplify it, but they still created a whole list, the listing of like a player character, and with all kinds of bonus proficiencies, and then at certain levels they get certain things, and they are more simplified than an actual player character, but it's still complicated. And I am finding when you have 6 players and they summon a demon in my one-on-one group. They've got a demon. They've got a greater eagle. The ranger summons a creature. The wizard could have the other guy. He hasn't used it in a while, but he has a fire elemental. He's got a lantern, and so they've got 3 summoning things that they have, and the other wizard could actually summon an elemental too. She has an item, but she hasn't used it. So there's 4. You could potentially have 6 players and 4 creatures, and then you're gonna have a sidekick. You know what I mean? And when you have 6 players and they're already taking turns, and the ranger who summons the eagle has a companion, giant lizard companion that's growing with him, and I kind of made it magical. But see, so that could be potentially 11 turns just for the players. And then I have to do, 10 turns with my creatures, 6 creatures or 8 creatures or 10 creatures, depending on how many are in the battle or whatever. So I don't, I really, you should very carefully, or as a DM, really say to yourself, don't allow them to have NPCs or sidekicks or anything, because they're going to start adding all kinds of summoning creatures onto their thing. And it's going to get really tedious. And it does get tedious if you have, they've got 10 or 11, they can have up to 10 or 11 turns. I know the last one was 6 players and 3 things, a demon, the lizard, and the eagle. So that was 9 turns. And it can get, I see, people lose interest because it's been 10 or 20 minutes since their turn, and every person has so many things they got to do. And then we got to look at the magic item description or the spell description or the feat that they're using. Sometimes we got to read exactly what the range and So I really recommend not doing as much as you can. Now, if it's a party of 3 or less, 1, 2, or 3, okay, fine, I get it. But 4 or more, I would recommend not doing sidekicks. Or I wouldn't say that the sidekicks are very simple. Like if it's if you want to use a spellcasting sidekick, it can do 1 or 2 spells. It has a few hit points, and it's in the back, and it'll cast 1 spell along with this on the same turn as your character, and that's about it. And if it gets hurt, it only gets hurt because your character falls or gets hurt in a dramatic way. I would just keep it. I mean, there are rules out there. I'm just going off the top of my head, but I would keep it so freaking simple. Or if it was the one here, the knowledge-based one, the academic one. So they have a couple of good skill rolls for the character, and that's it. And you know what I'm saying? Because when you get to 8th, 7th, 8th, 9th level, they're going to start summoning all kinds of things. So parlaying with monsters is another section, and parlaying with monsters is, that's cool. I think parlaying is a good fun. It's always fun to turn the monsters or villains into a role-playing discussion. It can get pretty hilarious. I love doing it. Nanny Poo Poo, one of my previous videos, in Storm King's Thunder, they talked to Clathu, whatever his name is, Clathu, the red dragon. That I love it when you role-play monsters, and if you as a DM need motivation or ideas or their MOs, this little area section here is pretty good. Parlaying with monsters about just giving you some ideas. Environmental hazards is the one I'm talking about, where it gets really crazy high fantasy, and I love this picture of the spiders taking over a town. So that could be a whole long campaign about right there with with spiders and drow, or that could be a huge. They got to make that the next. Maybe I'll do that. Make a campaign book on that. But all of these sort of ideas are really crazy. They're going to add a layer to. I like tropes, right? Especially if you're playing with as beginners or that once a week thing. But if you're a group of sads, and these are awesome, you add that extra layer onto the tropes, it does become an original thing then. And so these environmental hazards section is pretty cool for that. Again, I'd only probably do it with sads and not with a weekly group that you only see once in a while, because I think for that one it's just fun to do the tropes, and because you do need to have a connection in a way that works week to week, that people can quickly grasp. Because remember, we all got our lives, and when I come back from week to week, I have to re-explain to them the whole storyline and plot sometimes, because they won't remember, and they'll take notes, but they won't remember. They still, they'll have a name, and we like this person, but then they don't remember why, and I have to go back and tell them the whole plot line sometimes. So if you add another layer of weirdness or strangeness that's totally new, it's going to make that even more difficult for the week to week kind of groups. So I would not recommend these. Unless, like the spider one that takes over the town, that's pretty simple. So that kind of is doable. But a lot of these are really wacko and weird. This whole mimic colony thing is kind of, people I think have been noting that one, where the mimics take over a whole area. And I think they're to me, mimics are pretty carnivorous, and they're going to eat humans. They're not going to be nice. I could see them trying to take over a village. Like they start off in one little area with being the chests and the lanterns and the doors, and they slowly start and people are like, what's happening? Where did all these people go? And who's taking that would be pretty scary. Okay, what else? Okay, so some natural hazards here in one section, pretty small. Just kind of extra rules there, natural hazards, which I keep it simple, but I use my 357 rule where if they're low level, so at 3, difficulty class 13, I will have them do tests. Although 3, if they're first level, I'll do 11, difficulty class 11 for any kind of test. Rubble falls, tripping, crashing, whatever it is, an environmental hazard. I'll just do it based on their level. If they're, and the damage too. If they fall at first level into a pit, DC 11 to save to not fall, and if they do fall, I'll have them do 1d4 damage. That kind of thing. And if they're 5th level, DC 15, crazy slippery rock slide, mud, fall in, boom, 1d8. Plus they're stuck, and the creature comes out and starts attacking them. That kind of stuff. So that 357 video, if you want to see that one on my thing. If I can remember, I'll put a link. Okay, puzzles. I hate puzzles. I'm telling you, I am an experienced DM. And that's the last section, by the way. And they made some really nice detailed puzzles for you to use. And I noticed 2 of them are very similar, so the creativity there is getting a little. Oh no, we don't know what to do. They had one with letters and they had another one with letters, and it was like, exactly, puzzles. I mean, I purposely play D&D because I hate puzzles, so I'm not going to put a puzzle in my D&D game. I hate puzzles. I don't know, mind puzzles or whatever. Where you patterns and oh my gosh, no, I'm not going to do. I hate puzzles. I hate board games. I hate dominoes, card games, pinochle. My family play, Wisconsin, Polish side plays pinochle, and I had a great time with them playing it, but I just don't want to play no more. And my wife and daughters want me to play pinochle. I'm like, and I don't want to play board games. I just want to play D&D or role playing games. That's all I like. But puzzles. Do you want to use puzzles in your game? Man, make them simple. It's even experienced players. I have had, I've done things like mysterious, puzzly, riddle type things, and people go way off into other. I give them the direct answer, and they will keep thinking it's something else. You know what I mean? So I must be terrible at it, but I just hate puzzles. I mean, once in a while, simple ones, if they get it, whew. But man, and usually though, they don't get it. Even after they get it, they start talking about maybe it's this instead of that. And I have to hurry up and just, there it is, done. Also, I don't like when they say, if there's a trap or puzzle, and oh no, you can't mess it up. You can't break it, or you can't, if you do, it's magical. They'll say there's a device there that opens this, and nothing can break that device. So you can't go around the puzzle. I'm like, no, every trap or whatever has a go around, a way to fake it, a way to break it, I just can't accept that this is so perfect and magically done, that they have to solve the puzzle. I really hate that. And I just always had bad experiences. And probably because I hate puzzles. Anyway. So again, you're going to buy it. You're going to buy it. It's fun to read. I read through it casually on my throne, and it was a good read. And and that's it really. Again, if you're like me and you only got once a week and Player's Handbook, Monster Manual, that's all you really need. Plus maybe the Dungeon Master's Guide, and then your whatever campaign you're doing. But this is for SADs. These are for SADs in my opinion, that play and hang out and coolest thing ever. Got their space and everyone comes and different DMs, different players each week or whatever. Totally wish I was part of SADs. Anyway, so I hope this just kind of give you a good overview and kind of some warnings and making sure that you kind of know what you got to deal with. And if you do use it as a new DM, make sure you read what they want to do, right? If they do want to do one of these things, you as a DM really got to read these things beforehand and do your homework, because it's just going to come up and they're going to misinterpret it. And even then it's going to be tough because you're not going to remember them all, right? You try to get a gist of it all. But then when you start playing, they're going to come up with that thing that you read, but you can't remember the details of it, and you got to go over it again. But that's the way it is. It's it is what it is. But like I said, if you just play it once a week, I would focus on Player's Handbook and the Monster Manual. And then if you're part of that super awesome D&D players that can just play a lot and hang out, then you expand on those other things. But as a new DM, if you do play with your players, and then you can slowly, add a little bit each campaign or time you do it. That obviously, But anyway, that's just kind of my warning advice for you. And hope this was just helpful. Again, appreciate all the other YouTube guys that do D&D and gals that put out really great videos. And so that's my little edgy curmudgeon take on it all.